Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am your host, Alan Moore, and today it's my pleasure to bring you an interview with Linden Cornett, founder of Seagrass Financial, a fee-only financial planning firm based in Oregon. So Linden is a career changer after spending 18 years at Intel. She is, by her own admission, extremely frugal, so she and her husband were able to achieve financial independence last year, right around her 40th birthday. She knew she didn't want to just stop working, so she decided to run an experiment, play a little. What would happen if she started her own RIA? So she did, expecting to grow slowly while ramping down at Intel. What she has done, however, is grow really quickly, bringing in over $20 million in assets in just 10 months, and is continuing to try and balance her growing firm and her now part-time job at Intel. Her story is one that I think will resonate with the career changers that are listening in, as she has built her initial business foundation by working with old colleagues, friends, and referrals from friends and now her existing clients. Her fee structure is also pretty unique, which is helping to attract in her ideal clients. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/72. In addition to the typical resources, you'll find a link to our recently launched book, co-authored by Kitsis and myself, titled The Monthly Retainer Model: What It Is, Why It Works, and How to Implement It in Your Firm. Folio Dynamics is leading the evolution of the wealth management business with technology and advisory solutions that empower every advisor. Folio Dynamics just launched the concept of Phiborg, which covers those advisors who embrace technology automation the same way the cyborgs of science fiction did. That Phiborg concept means that advisors can automate those activities that don't generate revenue while maximizing the time they spend with clients. For more on Phiborg, on working with millennials, and on Folio Dynamics, visit foliodynamics.com/thought_leadership. Also be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. You can interact with other listeners, ask guest questions, and more. Without further ado, here's my interview with Linden. Hey, Linden, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited because I did not actually realize that I think we're circling the wagon on your study group. We've had some recent episodes with John McCarthy and with Kat, and I will not try to say Catalina's last name because it would just butcher it. And so I'm excited to have you on to talk about your perspective and your career path into financial planning.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
So, as always, let's start at the beginning. So, did you get into financial planning fresh out of college? Was this kind of always your path?
No, so I actually don't have any formal education in financial planning. So, I went to school and my major in school was mathematics. Then I eventually decided to add in a double major of computer science. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life, but I've always been kind of a math and science type person. I kind of made the rounds of all the different sciences, chemistry, biology, etc., and ended up really enjoying computer science. So went that route. And then at the end of college, I interviewed with a bunch of tech firms and ended up taking a job with Intel Corporation out here in Portland, Oregon. And that's kind of where I got started in terms of, educating myself about kind of investments and financial stuff, because I was in a kind of strange or maybe unusual situation where I graduated from college with a positive net worth.
Now, how did you pull that off?
Okay, so I had a grandmother who was extremely generous. She paid for, the majority of my college costs. My parents also had saved some money, and I also had, applied for quite a few scholarships and, kind of grants and things like that, which I had also, won, and that kind of covered a lot of my spending. I'd also worked my entire life, basically. All through high school, I had worked and saved money. I've always been a saver. So I got to the end of college and I had some savings. I hadn't spent all of my money. My parents had a little bit of money left over in my college fund, which they basically turned over to me and said, here's some money. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount, but they said, here, do something smart with this. So I was really extremely fortunate in that I found what is now the Bogleheads. At the time, it was a message board on Morningstar called the Vanguard Diehards. And I spent the last few months of my senior year of college kind of immersing myself in that, kind of philosophy in terms of investing, financial planning, financial independence. There were a lot of really active contributors at that time, like William Bernstein, Rick Ferri, Larry Swedroe, et cetera, who were, very famous authors, right? But they were really actively participating in those forums at the time. And I basically, I bought into that, kind of philosophy of, how should I manage my money? So, I started my job. I took the summer off, started my job in the fall. I also got a bonus for, kind of starting my job. And my employer offered me two options. They would either pay for me to relocate across the country because I was on the East Coast and my job was on the West Coast, or they would give me some ridiculous amount of money if I wanted to just do it myself. So
So of course you took the latter.
Well, of course I took the latter, right? So I rented a moving van, stayed in Motel 6s as I drove across the country, and ended up with, between the college savings, my own savings, and that relocation bonus, I had a pretty good chunk of money that I needed to do something smart with. So I went and I invested in some Vanguard index funds.
I will say it's a testament to your personality that your parents turned the money over to you and said, just go do something smart with it, knowing that you would. Most 22-year-olds, I would say, take that and they blow it. And then they go on a Europe vacation while their company moves them from one coast to the other. So it's obvious that you had the personality for, I do think some people are just wired, to be better savers, but also just recognizing through having worked and earned money and paying for college and all of that, just how important those pieces are. So real quick, while you were at Intel, kind of what was your initial role and sort of what was your career path at Intel? I mean, what did you do for them?
Yeah, so I actually still work for Intel part-time.
Oh, okay.
I've been there for 18 years now. I started out writing software for networking, the networking division of Intel, and I'm actually still in that group. So the role that I'm in now is I'm an architect, which means that I basically work with the hardware designers, the software designers, and so on to design what our products are going to look like that we're selling maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years from now. And this is kind of a role that's, has been sort of evolving and changing. We've released a lot of products, as you can imagine, over the past 18 years. But I've kind of stayed in this group and increased my expertise. And I think because I've been in this group so long, my manager was willing to be extremely flexible when I basically told him that I was ready to start my own firm. So then I was able to go to a half-time schedule, which is still where I'm at today.
So with Intel for 18 years, and you pretty much, it sounds like you were in this kind of architect project management type position the whole time. I mean, or for a big chunk of it, it sounds, I guess when I think of a company like Intel, I think people get downsized and moved across and mergers and all that, you're getting shifted around constantly, but it sounds like it was a pretty stable career.
Yeah, my group is fantastic, actually. People who are in my group tend to stay in my group. We have a lot of people who've been around for, 5, 10, 15 years. So it has been very stable, great work environment. I really have no complaints about it. But, after, working in the same field for, 15, 16 years, I kind of wanted to try something new. So that's kind of where I made this. Well, there's more to the story, right? So, during that time that I was at Intel, I basically was like your classic do-it-yourself investor, right? So, as my situation got more and more complicated, I had started out kind of learning about investing. Then I've always done my own taxes, so I learned about taxes. As an Intel employee, I have, stock options, stock participation, eventually RSUs, et cetera. So I've kind of, over time, kind of learned the different pieces of, what somebody would maybe learn in a CFP education kind of on my own. As I've kind of come up to each of those situations, I would kind of take a step back and read everything I could about that subject and kind of learn about it myself. And then in 2003, I got married. So that kind of added another whole level of complexity to my picture. And my husband had some student loans, so I had to learn about those. We have very different personalities when it comes to money. I'm the saver, he's the spender. So we had to kind of negotiate how that worked, merging finances, figuring out, how we budget, how we work together as a couple. We also bought a house. He had some credit card debt. So there's kind of a whole new set of things that kind of came into my financial life, kind of, as they came up, I learned about them. So I'm kind of building my level of knowledge sort of during this time period.
It's funny to me because advisors will always come up at conferences and say, Alan, what do you do for young people in your planning process? Like, what's happening in their life that they would need financial planning? And I love it because you're detailing your 20s and 30s, which is like every 6 to 12 months, something that a financial planner could have helped with. Now, you were a DIY, you're going to go get that education yourself, but like you can see that path and like how many places as a planner you could have stepped in and given information and recommendations and advice to someone who wasn't interested in going and digging in and learning all about taxes and just wanted a quick answer. So it just always makes me laugh to hear, a recollection of your 20s and 30s that I'm just like, yep, planning opportunities every 6 months. And yet people can't figure out what we do for younger clients that aren't retired and have money already. So anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a side job, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to do it yourself, then you need to dedicate some part of your time to always kind of staying up to date on what needs to be done with respect to your finances.
And there will always be the Lindens of the world that don't want to hire a financial planner for themselves. Like that's just a reality. We know that personality-wise, there are DIY folks out there, and there are services and there's plenty of information. It's, really financial planning is designed, and kind of our model and your model now with your firm is designed around helping folks that do actually want to delegate some, maybe not fully delegate. There are models for that as well, but that there will always be that DIY group, but there will also always be folks that are looking for advice. So sorry, I will step off my soapbox. So you're gaining all this information, introduce some new complexities from your husband's situation.
Right. So the next thing that happened was Intel offered to pay for me to get an MBA. So from 2004 to 2006, I still continued to work for Intel full time, but I flew to Boston from Portland, Oregon, once a month to take, to take like 3 days of intensive classes. And then the rest of the time was basically distance learning, assignments and so on in between the 3 days a month of intensive classes. So this was a little over 2 years, I believe, of basically flying to Boston. I became, high status on Delta.
Not a bad piece. Now, you went to Babson, correct?
That's correct.
Because they have just an absolutely phenomenal entrepreneurship program, apparently, I was not even aware of.
Yeah, so the reason I did it was I had been in this architect role at Intel, and I was thinking I might want to go into strategic planning. So that's kind of why I did the MBA. And during the course of the MBA at Babson, they have a really strong focus on entrepreneurship. I learned quite a bit about accounting, some stuff about finance, got some more education about economics. I didn't really learn anything about financial planning, right, in an MBA.
Right, not in an MBA.
And I kind of decided at the end of that I actually really liked the job I was already doing at Intel. So it didn't really do anything for my Intel career, but I think it did help me a lot later on when I decided to start my own business because I had all that foundation from my MBA.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, Eric Roberge, who is one of our founding members, he went to Babson and is just like a huge advocate for Babson. And he shared, I think the other day with me, that said that they're the number one college in America for entrepreneurship. So, which is funny because I don't think most people realize that you can go to school for entrepreneurship, which I didn't realize. I wish I had some education in it before I, dove into the deep end of owning my own business. But it's good to hear that like you actually learned things that were helpful later on, even if it wasn't helpful in the actual Intel job, other than just maybe seeing whether or not the grass was actually greener on the other side.
Right. So during this same time, I started to have some friends approach me and say, hey, I'm maxing out my 401k. I'm doing a Roth IRA. What else should I be doing? Am I picking the right things in my 401k? I really have no idea. Can you help me out? And of course, this was something that I had a lot of interest in. So I would sit down with my friends and basically write them an investment plan where I'd analyze their portfolio, like look at all their 401k options, kind of give them a spreadsheet with what they should do and kind of send them on their way to go implemented on their own. This is something I really enjoyed doing. I also kind of became part of or created what is really a mastermind group, although I didn't know that name at the time. It was a group of, I think, 3 or 4 of my friends who were also DIY kind of finance people for their own personal finances. And we didn't have meetings or anything like that, but we would email each other, periodically with ideas or articles we'd read or questions about various things related to financial planning. So, one thing, we all were interested in financial independence, retiring early. So, we read every article out there about safe withdrawal strategies. We all wrote our own investment policy statements and shared them with each other and critiqued them and so on. Around that time is when the HSA came out. So we studied all about HSAs and, figured out that actually it's an amazing way to save for retirement. And so we started all maxing out our HSAs and paying for our medical expenses out of our own pockets. We also kind of learned about the 2-step Roth IRA process because our incomes were getting to the level where we were no longer eligible to contribute to Roths. We all started refinancing our mortgages, thinking about taxes. So we kind of had this, I think of it as almost like a CFP coursework.
Just self-study.
That we self-study, right? That we all kind of did as a group because we were interested. And this is a group of people that I'm still in contact with. I still email them, maybe once or twice a month with articles or ideas or things like that. These are all Intel employees. None of them are clients. They're not going to be clients, but they're people who are considered to be experts among their circle of friends. And this has actually, been a source of some eventual clients for me, as these people have kind of referred people to me once I started my own business.
This is like the top money nerd group. And I mean that in such a good way. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard of people getting together and doing this other than financial planners. So I could see financial planners doing this, but for other folks just like have a passion around money, I guess I just don't run in those circles. So I love it. That is so awesome.
Yeah. And then around that time, I was reading a lot of blogs, a lot of financial independence blogs, and I actually did a guest post on Get Rich Slowly about tax loss harvesting. It was, December 2008, the market was dropping. Everybody was coming to me like, oh my God, what should I do? And I was like, you should do tax loss harvesting. So I can send you a link to this article. You can link to it in the notes if you want to. But so it's out there. Like, this was, 8 years ago, right? Like, long before I even thought about opening my own firm. But I did this kind of one-off guest post about tax loss harvesting. Right around the same time, my son was born. So my son was born in 2008. My daughter was born in 2010. So this, of course, brings up a whole new set of financial issues, saving for college. I took 6 months leave of absence from my job for when each of my kids were born. And also we decided that my husband, who had been teaching in a high school for 5 years since we got married, we decided that he was going to stay home with the kids. So originally this was an experiment. My son was born in August, so he took a 1-year leave of absence. And we're like, okay, we'll try this out. We'll see how this is going to work. And it worked out really well. I mean, he's actually much, much better suited to kind of being a full-time caregiver, child caregiver than I am. He is really amazing at it. And then, before the year was out, I was pregnant with my daughter. And my kids were born 18 months apart. So actually 20 months apart. So by then, being a stay-at-home dad is like a more than full-time job, right? You got two real little kids, and he became involved in a co-op preschool near us. And he actually ended up being a stay-at-home dad for 7 years until my daughter started kindergarten last fall, at which point he went back to work part-time.
So he was at home with the kids, you and kind of managing that side of the house. You were still working, and you mentioned that you were really passionate about financial independence. So is this something that you were able to get to? I mean, you're pretty young, so I don't know. Was that something that was a goal to actually be able to hit financial independence at this point in your life?
Yeah, I've always been trying to get towards financial independence. From when I first started working, my goal was to be able to, by the time I was in my late 30s, early 40s to not have to work anymore, basically. It wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to work anymore. I just didn't want to have to work anymore. So I've always been a great saver. Through all this time, I saved, 40, 50, and towards the end, even 60% of my salary. And if you've looked at any of the Mr. Money Mustache stuff, he basically shows the shockingly simple math of early retirement. And it really is all about your savings rate. So saving 50% of your salary, according to all of his, graphs and so on, should mean that you reach financial independence in 17 years. And that's almost exactly what happened for us. So we actually reached the point not too long ago, it was earlier this year, where basically all of our future spending could be paid for from our portfolio.
That is fantastic. Congratulations on that. Did you have a frugal party of some kind? I feel like you have to do something, but going extravagant and going on a cruise seems counterintuitive to the whole concept. So,
well, I turned 40 last summer, which was actually right around the time that this also happened. And my husband and I went on a 5-day trip to Iceland, just the two of us. We left the kids.
Oh,
we left the kids behind with my mom, which was really, really nice of her. So it was kind of, originally it was like a celebration for my birthday, but it was also sort of a financial independence celebration at all. And it was not frugal. I mean, it was expensive.
Was it stressful at all for you, even though you knew you could afford it?
No, because actually my mother paid for the majority of it as a birthday present. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So I didn't actually have to,
didn't have to deal with the stress of
flex my spending muscles, because it's really hard for me to spend money. It's not like frugality is a chore for me. Spending money is what's hard for me. That's just always the way I've always been. So let me kind of step you through the next kind of thing that kind of got me closer to starting my own business. So about 5 or 6 years ago, which was I think about 2010 or 11, my grandmother asked me to be the executor for her estate. And she had some money and a couple of trusts and things like that. So I basically became more involved in her kind of day-to-day financial planning. She had her investments managed with, kind of a big name investment managing firm, but she didn't really have anybody doing financial planning for her. So I sort of started helping her kind of navigate. She had an in-home caregiver. She had some alternative investments like interests in mineral deposits and oil and gas and things like that. She also was paying a lot for her investment management. So I kind of helped her negotiate getting some savings on that as well. And then, so I kind of started helping out another person kind of hands-on for the first time. I mean, of course, this is my grandmother, right? So she's not paying me. I'm doing it, just to kind of help her out and help out the family. And then she passed away a couple of years ago, and I had to administer her estate, which was all great education in terms of learning about how all this stuff works. And, during that process, I started to have more and more people approach me saying, I can see that you kind of know what you're doing. Would you ever consider opening your own firm so that I can hire you to actually take care of my money for me? And this was something that I had always sort of dreamed of doing, but I wasn't really willing to leave the safety of my job in order to do this because, I was on a path for financial independence, right? And I didn't want to give that up. That was really important to me. But I did start sort of having these people expressing interest in hiring me. And that kind of got me thinking okay, maybe I could do this sort of on the side or sort of test it out sort of as an experiment to see, can I really start a firm and, make money at it, or will people actually hire me, or are they just kind of saying that they'll hire me to make me feel good or something like that?
Right.
So around that time, I had been reading Michael Kitsis's blog for, several years. So I actually, we had emailed back and forth about a couple things related to some articles that he had posted. So I actually emailed him and I said, look, I'm thinking of starting my own firm. What do I need to do? And he was extremely helpful. I think probably every single person in this industry kind of goes back to Michael at some point, right?
Agreed. It's amazing that he can respond to all the emails he gets.
Right. So he basically kind of laid out for me okay, if you want to start a firm, then what you need to do is take your Series 65. Then you need to register in your state. Like those are the two kind of must-have things to do. So, and I think around that same time, I read the blog post from Sophia Berra about, starting your firm for $10K or less or something like that. So I was like, I think I'm going to give this a try. I have $10,000. I'm willing to, put some money in, see if this works out, see if people actually want to hire me, see if I actually enjoy doing the work, because I really didn't know if I would enjoy it as a career. I'd always been doing it sort of more as like a hobby or kind of something that I do on the side. So I kind of thought of it as like, we always talk about people doing a side hustle while they start their firms. Like the firm was kind of my side hustle in a way, right? But I also was thinking like we were getting closer to financial independence at that point. I still had half of my life in front of me, and I wasn't going to sit around and, just go on vacation and read books and do yoga, which I love doing all those things. But I didn't think that would be kind of a happy and fulfilling life for me for the rest of my life. I wanted to do something where I was helping people, contributing in some way, kind of doing something productive with part of my time. So I also kind of thought of this financial planning business as sort of an encore career. If you're familiar with that term, is, you reach financial independence and then you do something else that's maybe not, the most financially lucrative thing you could have done, but it's something that you get some personal satisfaction out of.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what book is Encore Career from? There's a personal finance book, I think, that concept came from.
Yeah, I've read about it or heard about it in a lot of different kind of financial independence. I've read a lot of blogs and podcasts. Todd Trester, who does the Financial Mentor website and podcast, talks about this quite a lot.
Okay. I was thinking there might be a book to refer to for it, but yeah, for listeners that aren't aware, Encore Career, just like if you're at a concert and everyone yells encore, it's kind of that final piece, but it's still important. But just because you're done with your career doesn't mean you just have to go backstage and be done. You can kind of come back for an encore that is a little different. And so, now granted, I don't think a lot of people are looking at encore careers when they turn 40, or in your case, you weren't even 40 whenever you were looking at this, but that's because you had gotten yourself to that point financially where, you could afford to play a little bit and kind of test the waters and see what worked.
Right. And so I sort of thought of this as an experiment, right? So I went out, I bought the Series 65 book, I read it, I took some practice tests. I passed the Series 65 exam in June of 2015. I wouldn't say, Alan, that it's the easiest exam ever.
Have I said that?
Yeah, I've heard you say that. There's a bunch of parts of it. There's all the investment part, financial planning part. Like that's easy. I knew all that stuff. But the regulations are actually pretty complicated. So I had to read that section of it because I'm not in this industry, right? So I had to read that section, take practice tests on that section only, for a week or two before I really felt comfortable with it.
Fair enough. So that is absolutely fair to push back on me about that. I probably should caveat saying the Series 65 is much easier than the CFP, especially when it comes to the actual content. The regulations, you're right. Like I remember questions about can I charge a fee and a commission on the same account? I'm like, you shouldn't, but I don't know if that means you can't. So some of the regulations are a little messy, but most certification exams I've done, you can't study for a week and then take it. So that is where that comes from. So for anybody that has failed the 65 or has taken it and it's been really hard, I'm sorry. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm more being derogatory towards the tests that probably should be a little harder to be able to take the legal exam to give investment advice. But, anyway, so very fair point.
Yeah. Okay. So then that was June. I took the month of July off, went on vacation for the month, which I do every July. And I came back in August and I was like, all right, I'm going to get started. I'm going to start my firm. So I went on the Finner website. I created my account. I started staring at all the forms I had to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to hire somebody to help me with compliance. So I approached a couple companies. I ended up talking with Jim Cullen, and he kind of pointed me towards XYPN.
Sure.
So that's actually when I decided to join. XYPN I decided I was going to hire somebody for compliance anyway. And Jim was saying, well, you can get compliance as well as, all this other stuff by being a part of XYPN. So I decided to do that. And it was a great decision for me. First of all, I was able to get through the compliance process pretty easily, but also just getting that's when I joined our study group, which was actually just the fall launchers. I was, optimistically hoping that I might be able to launch my firm that fall, which didn't end up happening because the state of Oregon it takes quite a while to approve new registrations. But we started, meeting, pretty regularly. I don't think I was able to meet every week at first because it was a bad time for me, but we had an online community and I started participating quite a lot in the forums. And it was great because I was able to go in there and ask any question I had and I would get, 5 or 10 answers within an hour. Yeah. Which is just an amazing resource to have. So, the XYPN forums, I feel like kind of almost made up for the fact that I didn't really have much industry experience. I felt like I had quite a lot of experience on the areas that I had experience on, but the things that were new to me, that hadn't been part of something that I had needed to learn about or for myself or my family or my friends, now I had kind of a place to go to get some answers or some resources to learn about those things kind of as they came up. And now that I've had clients, that's also been really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fair to point out that most planners that come to us have never actually, for the most part, haven't owned an RIA for a period of time. So even if, you may have been asking some content, topic related questions, maybe somebody got in a CFP program that you did not, everyone's coming in with these compliance questions and how do I market my firm? What technology do I use? Who's tested these 500 pieces of tech that emails us every week, it seems, to see which ones work and which ones don't. So we call it choose your own coworkers. And it really is based around that concept of you should just be able to ask a question instead of going out and hunting down the answer for hours and hours and hours. And especially because, your time is really valuable because you came in starting a business. Most business owners, or a lot of folks, are starting the business and they have nothing but time, right? But you still had a job at Intel. You have a family you want to spend time with. So your time's really, really valuable when you're kind of getting started and not a lot of hours to spread out among all these various pieces to kind of get started. So you got launched. And so at what point did you go part-time with Intel? Was that right when you launched or did you wait a little while before you made that move?
So I got essentially approved with the state of Oregon in December. So it took 3 months after I submitted my registration because we had to go back and forth. They didn't like my original pricing model, which we can talk about a little bit more.
Oh, interesting.
In the future.
Okay.
But they basically approved me kind of late December. But I didn't want to pay the fees for 2 years, only just to be in business for 3 weeks of December. So I actually pushed my official approval to the January 4th, which was the first business day of January. I officially launched January of 2016. That's this year. And then I was expecting that my first, couple months in business would be pretty slow. So I had negotiated with my manager that I would go to part-time starting February 1st. Which actually ended up being a mistake because I actually, in the first 2 months after I launched my business, I actually took on 6 clients.
Whoa, in your first 2 months?
Yeah, in my first 2 months. So I'm not really doing any marketing. I don't have a website at this point. I don't have business cards. I'm not really doing any marketing, but my husband sends out this amazing Christmas letter every year where it's like, he hand writes it and he puts in all these little drawings and all this stuff. And as part of this Christmas letter, he mentioned that I was launching my financial planning business. And, we send this out to 100 people every year. So you can think of it as like direct mail, right? So I was not expecting this, and I didn't do it for this reason, but a number of people contacted me after they got the letter and they said, oh, I heard that you're launching a financial planning business. I really need some help, or I have a friend who needs some help, or I have, a family member who needs some help. Would you be willing to talk with them? So I actually had, and there had been some people that I had been sort of informally helping, for some time that also kind of officially signed on during those first 2 months. But so I was really slammed.
6 in your first 2 months. I mean, I know some planners that get 6 in their first year. So to bring that many on while you have a full-time job, while you're kind of figuring out your process and all that, like bring on 6 in 2 months now would be a challenge, even though you have all the systems and processes in place. So yeah, that must have been a busy start of the year for you.
Yeah, that was pretty busy. And then I hadn't learned to say no yet. So in March, I took on another 4 clients. And then in April, another 3. So in my first 4 months in business, I actually had 13 clients. And granted, not all of these clients are Like some of them are like my parents, right? And I'm not charging my parents. So there's a couple of family members that I'm just kind of helping them out. I have contracts with them, but they're not paying me because I don't feel like I need to take money from them at this point. So I'm like completely overwhelmed at this point. I'm still working for Intel part-time, but I have a lot of clients, and I kind of started saying to myself, okay, I can't keep taking on this many new clients all the time, because I actually have a pretty high touch financial planning process. So, during the first couple of months that I'm working with clients, I typically meet with them like 5 or 6 times to do a bunch of learning about them, filling out questionnaires together, and I do a lot of education. So I teach them about investing, about asset allocation, all that kind of thing. Building their portfolio, implementing it, all this kind of thing. And this was just taking up every spare minute of my day. So I was kind of picturing, I still work for Intel 3 days a week. And I was kind of picturing, okay, I'll work for Intel 3 days a week and work on my financial planning business the other 2 days a week. But what actually happened was I worked at Intel, 3 days a week, and then I worked on my financial planning business all the rest of the time. So for the other 4 days a week and the evenings of the 3 days I worked for Intel. So I basically turned into this person who did nothing but work, which is kind of crazy considering that I had just basically was on the cusp of reaching financial independence and didn't need to work at all, right? So I kind of got into this like really unbalanced situation, which was hard on me, hard on my family, and, obviously not sustainable long term. So after that, I kind of said to myself, all right, I'm not taking more than 1 new client per month. So the next several months, I took 1 client, and even that was too much. So now I'm at the point where I'm saying I'm not taking more than 1 every 2 months. And actually, in the last 30 days, I took on 3 clients, even though I had said that. So now I'm not taking any clients, for the rest of the year and probably into part of next year, because I need to slow down and have better balance in my life, basically.
I love that you're self-aware enough to recognize that. I think a lot of folks put those restrictions like 1 new client a month or 2 new clients a month. It's a marketing tool, right? It's a marketing strategy to say, you can't get in till December, so you better sign up now, or it's going to be January, February before you lose your slot. And it's very effective marketing. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're coming at it from a different angle of like, trying to find that balance, it sounds like, and trying to say, hey, I do want to build this business. I still love what I do at Intel. I still want to spend time with my family. And how do I do all of that at once? And the answer is you don't try to take on 6 clients a month, even if they're coming to you asking for help. So talk to me a little bit about, you had this wonderful service model. It sounds like you're doing some really intense planning. So what was it about the fee structure that Oregon did not like or didn't understand, I guess, whenever you kind of were first designing it? What did it look like, and what was their kind of issues with it?
Yeah, so I never wanted to do a fee structure based on assets under management. I don't believe that kind of fee structure really puts the focus on the right things, because really that's only looking at how much money does someone have that they are able to give to an advisor to invest, which really has nothing to do with how much you can help them. So I had originally, I'd been reading a bunch of, articles and things. I think there was a Kitsis article at some point about a guy out in Colorado. I'm blanking on his name, but he had a fee structure where he just charged a flat fee for all clients. Every client pays $4,500 a year. And I really like that idea because, I'm kind of thinking to myself, if I can have, maybe 20 clients paying me, $4,500 a year, that's a pretty good business, right? So I looked at that, and I had a friend who was sort of, advising me, or, we were kind of brainstorming a little bit about pricing. And he's like, I think you should just keep it as simple as you possibly can, which I agree with. I really like the simplicity because I think it's easier for clients. I want it to be completely transparent and apparent to clients how much they're going to be paying me. So the original fee structure that I put together basically tried to have nothing to do with assets, and it was just based on the types of accounts that people had. So I thought to myself, if all that somebody has is tax protected accounts like IRAs, 401ks, et cetera, then that's fairly easy to manage because you can do whatever you want inside those accounts without having to worry about the tax consequences. So I kind of had a single flat fee for somebody who had only that type of account. And then I kind of added on an additional kind of fee for people who had taxable accounts as well, because once you have taxable accounts, things get way more complicated. Now you need to worry about the tax consequences, think about tax loss harvesting, et cetera. And then I wanted to add on an additional fee for people who wanted to hold individual stocks, because I do, 100% low cost index portfolios, usually with Vanguard. So if somebody needed to hold on to individual stocks, maybe they had some low basis stocks or something that they couldn't sell, that makes it more complicated because you have to construct the portfolio around that. I had already kind of been dealing that with some of my family members that I'd been helping out, and that kind of added to the amount of time and work that it was going to take to handle that money for them. And then I also wanted to add on, if somebody was kind of in the distribution phase, now things are more complicated as well. So I kind of had this fee structure that I felt like it was a really good measure of complexity.
Yeah.
And Oregon basically said, you can't do that. If you want to do something like that, you have to have a minimum account size.
Oh, interesting.
Because they didn't want somebody coming in with $100,000 and paying whatever, $4,000 or $5,000 a year, because that is higher than the percentage that they're willing to allow, basically. So they basically said, you need to have some sort of tiered fee structure based on the assets that you're advising on.
Oh, that's infuriating. I'm sorry for any Oregon regulators that are listening, but this is something we deal with regulators where they don't understand financial planning versus investment management, which you're including, it sounds like you're including planning and investment management under the same fee. And so, they're looking only at the investment account percentage and all of that. They're not thinking charging a fee for planning. But anyway, it's a long process to educate the regulators just because they've been doing it one way for 30 years, 40 years, I guess since the Investors Act 1940. So a while. So.
Right. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and I said, all right, I'll kind of do something that's a little bit more in line with, kind of more of like your standard XYPN model, where I charged a flat $1,800 a year for financial planning. And then I added on an incremental dollar amount kind of based on like buckets of portfolio size. So like if you had up to 100,000, it was a certain amount. If you had 100 to 200, it was another amount. So it was kind of closer to your standard AUM model, but I wasn't really doing it because I wanted to do it. I was doing it more because I was kind of forced into it.
Yeah.
And I still had in my kind of add-on for people who had individual stocks. So people who were, holding a large number of individual stocks, I wanted to kind of add on an additional amount there as well, because that just adds a lot more complexity to portfolio management.
Yeah, that's just a penalty for being a pain in the butt sometimes with having to work around all those. So.
Right. So, and then I also I wanted to be able to help people who didn't necessarily want to sign on for ongoing planning. So, like most people have like a quick start program. I just did, a flat hourly program as well. So I called it like my project-based planning, where I just had an hourly rate, and a couple of clients decided to take me up on that one as well.
Okay. So this is your current fee schedule where you have kind of the upfront sort of project planning for anybody that doesn't need the ongoing help, and they do the comprehensive financial planning and investment management. Well, is it considered investment management or is it considered investment advisement, since you aren't actually working with a custodian, correct?
Yeah. So what I've actually done is, so originally I wasn't even really thinking that I was necessarily going to manage assets at all. I was thinking I would just do financial planning and people could do their own kind of investment stuff with it, my assistance. But it turned out that, as I was talking to people before I launched my firm, they were kind of saying to me, I don't want to do it. I want you to be able to do it for me. And I thought about a lot of different ways I could offer that. So I thought about going with like a Betterment or a standard custodian. But I've always been a Vanguard investor. So I've had my Vanguard account since 1998, I think, when I, first started working. And my parents had also, moved their money over there. And Vanguard has a way that they can, like a client can give like an LPOA to another person so that person can go in and actually view the accounts, perform transactions, etc. And I'd been doing that for some time for some of my family members. So I knew it was possible.
So limited power of attorney to only trade, right? Like you can't take distributions for yourself. It's not like you're taking custody with this trading power. So
the only thing I can do is view the accounts. I can trade and I can send money to and from the client's bank account.
do you have a central portal where you can see all of your clients, or do you just have a different login for each of your clients at Vanguard?
It actually shows up when I log in for my own account.
Okay.
All of my clients show up as well.
Okay.
And then I can go and hide them if I want to. Like there's some customizable stuff there. So if I want to like open that up and only look at one client, I can go hide everybody else if I want to.
So for the folks out there, and I know this is kind of very popular in the Garrett Planning Network, where they primarily focus on hourly planning, very anti-AUM fee structure, I guess, and service model. And so I know a lot of the advisors there will go and do exactly what you're talking about. Keep it at Vanguard, LPOA. That means you cannot deduct fees from their account. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so how are they paying your fees? Are they able to pay out of the IRA for any of their kind of investment management fees, or it's all coming out of cash flow or a taxable account they're writing you a check from?
Yeah, all of my fees are paid out of cash flow. So I'm not sure I mentioned this, but I do charge an upfront fee, which my ADV says it can be from $1,000 to $5,000. Most of my clients have paid somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000 for this upfront fee. So they typically will just write a check for that. They don't write a check. They usually do like a bill pay, an online bill pay from their bank account. Nobody writes checks anymore. And then because my fee is a flat fee, it doesn't change, right? So I have kind of a fixed annual fee. And then I give my clients the option of either paying monthly, quarterly, or I actually have one who's paying every 6 months, and I have one who's paying, once a year in arrears. So I'm not taking custody.
Oh, good plan. I was like cringing when you were about to say a year. So it's in arrears. Okay.
Yeah, in arrears. It's a friend of mine, so I'm not worried about them not paying me.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah, I'm not sure I would recommend that for a overarching fee structure, but if you know the person you trust that they'll pay you, then that can work.
Yeah, I know they're going to pay me. And actually, in practice, only 2 of my clients are paying monthly. Almost everybody's paying quarterly.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they basically set up a bill pay out of their bank account where they just automatically mail me a check once a quarter.
Okay. So I love the fee structure that you have. I think it's, lack of a better term, it's a little daring. It's pushing the envelope.
I did actually change it recently.
Oh, okay. So walk me through the changes then.
Yeah, the one that you're looking at on my website is my updated fee structure as of this month.
Oh, okay.
So after 6 months in business, I kind of did an analysis of the clients I had and the fees that I was charging. And basically what I discovered was that the clients who were doing financial planning only, who were paying me $1,800 a year, I was undercharging for the service that I was providing because I was putting a lot of time into those clients. And actually, it was taking me more time to have clients who wanted to do it themselves than when they wanted to delegate to me, because I had to teach them how to do it. And then I had to kind of walk them through how to do everything themselves. And actually, it was taking way more time. So I actually increased my fee for planning only from $1,800 a year to $2,400 a year.
Okay.
And at the same time, I reduced my fees for doing both, full service financial planning and investment management for people at the lower end of the portfolio value scale. Because what I was finding was that people who had, say somewhere between maybe $400,000 and $600,000, which was actually a good chunk of my clients, they weren't necessarily willing to pay the extra for portfolio management, but they didn't really want to do it themselves. And actually, it was taking me more time to have them do it than to just do it for them. Because I do this, like I'm on Vanguard every day. Like I can just log in and I have good systems for monitoring, rebalancing, figuring out how to invest new cash, things like that. And teaching somebody else how to use my system is actually really time consuming.
Right.
So what I ended up doing actually is for people so I base my pricing based on total portfolio value. So if they have money in a IRA or a 401k or a taxable account, it doesn't matter where they have the money. So my fee is not based on the assets I manage, but based on their total assets, portfolio assets.
Which helps reduce some conflicts of interest between, if you're working with a Intel employee, should they roll their money over,
Right.
from the 401k to the IRA, that sort of thing, like that, it does help. Do you get any pushback from charging on total portfolio value or not really?
I've never had anybody push back on it.
All right. Well, you know what that means. We got to start raising your fees. No, I love this structure. So you don't get pushback on fees at all, really?
I don't really, because almost everybody who comes to talk with me has reached me either through they know me already or they were referred by somebody they trust. And so they're kind of sold on working with me already. And actually, I mean, I guess I should step back. I've had a couple people try to negotiate. And I think early on, I would have said yes because I was feeling a little uncertain about, whether people were actually going to hire me. But now I know people are going to hire me. So if people try to negotiate, I basically just say, look, this is my fee for this service. If you want to pay less, we could go with a different service model. And then I kind of describe what the two different service models are, how they work. And then people pretty much typically always go with full service at this point.
So oh man, this is so awesome. There's so many places to dive into that I think would be interesting. I guess, how's business? So you have this unique fee structure. It's a little different. What's your assets under management or revenue at this point that'd be a good gauge of like how things are going?
Right. So I actually have quite a high assets under management at this point. I'm certainly not focused on trying to gather a lot of assets under management. That really hasn't been something I've been trying to do. But I think that because of my fee structure, like higher net worth people are attracted to it, right? Because, they're not paying 1% of their investable assets, right? They're paying kind of more of a flat fee, which does scale a bit as their portfolio value goes up, but it's nowhere near, the 1%. So I've gotten quite a few people who have larger portfolios and I kind of think of them as like frugal, wealthy people.
Right. It's that millionaire next door concept.
Right, exactly. And they're people who are also, thinking about financial independence. They're concerned about their costs, their long-term budget, things like that. And they're willing to fit my fee into their cash flow. So actually at this point, I actually just did an ADV update recently and my, regulatory assets under management was over 21 million at this point.
In 10 months?
Yes.
You are killing it. That is awesome. And like I said, you're not focused on the assets under management because your fee is not 1% AUM. If it was, it would be a little more important to you.
Right.
But it is a gauge of the clients that are coming in. So that is so awesome. What are you seeing in terms of kind of your typical client profile? I mean, how old are they? What do they do? Kind of where is that net worth, kind of portfolio balance that you're charging? Where does it fit into your fee structure, I guess?
Yeah, so I would say it's kind of like almost like a barbell kind of approach right now from my clients. Mm-hmm. So a good chunk of my clients are, kind of Gen X professionals, similar to me, right? So they're like maybe in their late 30s, 40s, early 50s. They've been working for, 10 to 15 years. They have sort of a complex financial situation, and they're looking at trying to reach financial independence before your traditional retirement age. As far as assets, they're ranging from, in the like maybe 300,000-400,000 range, all the way up to over 2 million. So I've got a couple of clients that are in that higher range as well. And then I've got another kind of segment of my clients who are already retired. So they're in their 60s and 70s. They have, a portfolio that's in the multi-millions, and they're just looking for somebody to kind of delegate to. So they know me, they trust me, they kind of agree with my investment philosophy, and they just want me to send them a check every month, and they don't want to have to think about it. So I've kind of got both of those two types of clients at this point.
And where are they coming from? Like, you said you didn't even have a website when you first launched. You obviously do now, but like, is it from a big marketing push? Is it all from your Intel network is where everyone's coming from, or just kind of a variety of sources at this point? Yeah.
So my first 10 clients were friends and family, people that, had kind of told me over the years that, they would like to hire me. And I kind of considered them to be kind of like, they would be my first group of clients. Of course, I didn't know if they would actually hire me, right? So I was kind of taking a little bit of a risk there. But it turned out that I had maybe 15 or so people who over the past 5 years or so had said that they would like to hire me. And about 10 of those people did hire me. My next 5 clients were from my Intel contacts. So they were Intel employees who had heard what I was doing or were referred to me by an Intel friend. Some of those people from that kind of informal mastermind group that I mentioned earlier. And then my next 5 clients have been from referrals from current clients. Now, I think I kind of over-deliver with clients. I probably put in way more time than I should based on what I'm charging right now. And part of that is because I'm kind of learning my processes and kind of, I think every client I try something a little bit different just to kind of see what works best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, I really I really want to help people, and I really love it when clients are engaged and they just want to do, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so if they want to meet every week and kind of knock out all their financial planning topics, I want to do that. I want to support that for them. And so I think that I've been able to, have some happy clients, although I've only been in business for, 10 months or so. But they've then referred some of their friends and family over to me as well.
Well, they say it takes 5 to 7 years to get a referral from a new client. So I would say that they're very happy with you if they're already referring. I'm curious, what is the goal at this point? You're a very long-range planner. Obviously, you have been your whole life. So what do you want this thing to grow into? Do you have a revenue goal, hours per week goal of working and don't really care what the revenue ends up being as long as you're not losing money? Do you want to stay at Intel? I'm just curious what are you building this for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think long-term, I don't want to create a big firm. I don't want to hire people. I don't want to have an associate advisor or an administrative person. I kind of want to do what I can do on my own. I'm not looking to have something huge. I don't really need or want kind of a big business, right? So I think long-term, my vision is that I will have something like 25 to 30 client households that I'm working for. There'll be people that I really enjoy working with, and I'll be able to work, kind of part-time, something like maybe somewhere between 10 and 20 hours a week. So that's obviously not happening right now. I'm working way more than that. And, eventually I'll leave Intel. It's been pretty hard to leave because they really want me to stay, and they've been extremely flexible about my work schedule and time off and things like that. And of course, I'm still getting all of my benefits, health insurance, et cetera, through there, as well as, all of my stock continues to vest and my bonuses continue to be paid, even though I'm not, really working there full time anymore. So yeah, I'm really struggling with this actually, Alan, is kind of figuring out how I get to that eventual end goal, which is to be working less. I'd really like to be working 15 to 20 hours a week. That's kind of, long term, I think that would make me happy. But I'm not sure the path to get there.
I'll tell you, I struggle with this every day. I go through this consolidation phase where I'll go through and look at okay, I need to cut these things out. It's ultimately why I sold my RIA, was because I had no time. And then things get trimmed down. And what do all entrepreneurs seem to do when we have time? It's oh, look at this other fun project that we could build and this other cool thing. So I wish I had words of wisdom or advice, but if you find any, you let me know, because it is a struggle. But I will say, one thing is you're in growth mode with the business. You spend a lot of time up front. The value you provide long-term is certainly there, but the number of hours spent doing the initial education and onboarding and all of that will go away. So once you're at that 25, 30 household point, you don't have to spend, 30 hours in the first 2 months onboarding a new client. And once that goes away, maintenance mode is significantly easier. But it's hard to leave something you love doing. You obviously love what you do at Intel, or you wouldn't have been doing it this long. You're obviously good at it. They want to keep you. So I understand it's a tough transition. It'll be interesting to hear how it ends up going and what you end up deciding to do. But it is nice that you're able to phase out there and provide some side income for yourself, obviously, and maintain those connections and maintain, doing the work that you love. So it sounds like just an awesome path that you've already put yourself on.
Yeah, it's been actually really surprising to me how successful this has been. I really thought of it as an experiment when I started it, and I was prepared for it to fail. I was like, well, I'll try this out. I kind of used a lean startup mentality. So I really didn't pay for anything I didn't have to up front. And I think, during my initial, pre-launch phase, which was, maybe 6 months, I think I ended up spending like about $3,500 total to launch my business.
Isn't that incredible? It's incredible that you can only spend $3,500 and launch a business.
Yeah, and even now my operating expenses are still pretty low. I think they're averaging maybe about $800 a month in expenses. So I'm actually was able to be profitable almost immediately. I think after my, because I charge an upfront fee, my upfront fee for those first 6 clients in the first 2 months actually got me to the point where I was profitable. Profits wise, I think I'm doing pretty well. I don't have any kind of huge revenue because I'm not charging a huge amount, right? But, long term, if we could cover our living expenses from this business and just let our portfolio continue to grow, I would consider that to be success.
Oh, that's amazing. And I do want to emphasize, because we have folks contact us all the time that say like, oh, well, I don't have any background in financial planning, like think about starting a firm. I do not want those folks to hear this story and go, oh, look how easy it is, because this was not an easy path.
No, it wasn't.
It looks really good now because we're seeing, it's that, picture of the tip of the iceberg. You don't see the other 90% that's hiding beneath the water.
Right, exactly.
Because you made a couple of extraordinarily intelligent moves that a lot of people just don't make. One, you got your financial house in order. And I think that's huge, is that you did not start this business with like, okay, if I don't get 10 clients in my first 3 months, we got to close the doors. No one needs that kind of stress. And if you had that stress, those first 6 clients may not have walked in the door because you may have been pushing it too hard. You kept expenses low. You weren't wasting money on useless tech. And you're obviously in the tech world, so it would have been really easy to go out and drop $20,000, $30,000 a year on cool tech in financial planning, if there is such a thing, and waste money. So, but the final piece is you're an expert in the client situations that you're bringing in, especially with those Intel clients, and you had this natural network to build off of, which is one of the huge advantages of being a career changer, is that you do have a natural network that's not financial planners, which was my network, graduating with a degree in financial planning. All I knew were planners. So you've been crushing it. I'm just so excited for you. I can't even tell you that this is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, I guess, what is that one piece of advice that you wish you could go back and give maybe the Linden that was looking at starting a firm, kind of in that process of evaluating if it made sense for you or whatnot, or kind of as you were getting launched? If there's one thing you wish you had known then that you know now, what do you think that one piece of information would be?
So I'm prepared for this question because I've listened to every single podcast episode.
Oh no! Most people are not prepared. I think that's so funny. Most guests don't actually listen, I guess. Okay, so let's hear the pre-prepared answer.
Yeah, so I would go back farther, and I think that way back in 2004, when I spent all of that time and energy to get my MBA, I think I would have been better off doing the CFP coursework instead.
Oh, okay.
Because the MBA, although it was paid for by my employer and it did kind of give me some, insight into starting a business and things like that, I don't feel like I've really used much of the knowledge that I learned there. And at this point, I am planning to do the CFP coursework when I have time, but I'm so busy right now.
It's hard to go get it, I know.
And also, I've looked through the whole curriculum, and I feel like I've sort of already taught myself all of the material. I mean, of course, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Sure.
So, I'm sure there'll be some things in there, and I'm sure I'll enjoy going through the case studies and things like that. But I'm finding it hard to be motivated to do the CFP at this point. I have to say I haven't had a single client or prospect ask me about it. And of course, I can't be a CFP until I have 3 years of experience, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm running up on 10 months of experience. So, I do plan to do the coursework and, become a CFP once I've been in business for 3 years. But I think it would have been helpful to spend that time doing that coursework up front instead of the MBA coursework at that time.
It's an interesting point that you make, because you end up in this time crunch where it would have been nice to have it, but now you're finding you're so busy that it's not necessary to get it today, but you can always go back to it again. You've kind of got 3 years to play it by ear until you get to that point. So,
right.
Awesome. Well, Linden, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and being so open and transparent with all the various things you've been working on. I am just so pumped for you. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Linden is absolutely killing it, and I'm just so excited to see her continue to push forward and achieve her dream of running the business with 25 to 30 clients, providing income for her family, and really being able to settle down and enjoy herself. Her story really does show the power of having your personal financial house in order and just how helpful and powerful a study group really can be. Folio Dynamics is leading the evolution of the wealth management business with technology and advisory solutions that empower every advisor. Folio Dynamics just launched the concept of Fiborg, which covers those advisors who embrace technology automation the same way the cyborgs of science fiction did. That Fiborg concept means that advisors can automate those activities that don't generate revenue while maximizing the time they spend with clients. For more on Fiborg, on working with millennials, and on Folio Dynamics, visit foliodynamics.com/thought_leadership. Be sure to join our VIP community at XYPlanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to XYPlanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.